I've read all the books, did all the courses, but I'm still tight as fuck. If we can decode the patterns of communication, what is the difference that makes the difference?
What I realized was that you can't optimize a life you don't choose. The distractions to my peace were being distracted by my doing.
If a pattern is not working out for you, how can we help you? How can I help you to relearn it and learn something new? Because if you only can do it in one way, you're not free. I started to found a pattern of sedation, fleeing, hiding away, and there are many, we all have many. It was never hindering my life in a way that I couldn't perform, that I couldn't do my work. It was more as a relaxation tool.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. I am your host, Scott Stone, and today I have a very special guest. He was my first coach. He is a master NLP practitioner, as well as one of the first level 3 Wim Hof instructors. Some of his clients call him the CEO Whisperer. Daniël Kluken, welcome to the show.
Thank you. All the way from the Netherlands, but then on the digital connection. Scott, good to hear you, see you again.
Yes. We spent many sessions in this format sitting across from a screen. However, the first time we met was in person. And
it was real life.
yes. And under quite funny circumstances. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was in Amsterdam and I was looking, actually, I wasn't even in Amsterdam yet. I was in Germany. And then my business partner at the time was like, I introduced him to the Wim Hof Method, and he was like, you should see if there's a workshop. So I Googled it up and got on the original site, and lo and behold, there was a workshop in Bergen, Holland. And
all places.
Right. And I jumped on and I messaged you. I tried to buy a ticket and it wouldn't work. And I messaged you. I remember this. And I said, I really wanted to come to this. I'm in Germany. I'll make my way there, but my credit card's being declined for fraud protection. And your response was, just get here. We'll make it work. and I jumped on a train from Frankfurt into Amsterdam. And then, I drove. I don't know. I did all sorts of crazy stuff. And then I jumped on I drove to Amsterdam, and then I jumped on a bus and then another bus, and I took a taxi to this like castle hotel in the middle of the woods. And I walk into this workshop, and there you and Ing are. And that was one of the most profound experiences I had at the time in my life.
Yeah, it was amazing to see you. And I was also, by the way, really honored that you, like, people coming in from the States, like there's such a huge distance between us. And of course, it's the coincidence that you're in Germany, but that you were willing to attend the workshop. And yeah, let's say, do you remember the year that it was?
It was 2017.
2017, yeah. So it's already such a long way back, and so many things have changed with the world, with me, with us, where you are nowadays. So yeah, the Wim Hof Method is nowadays, like, I think in the US, a standard in a way when it comes to cold exposure and breathing. But in those days, it was still like relatively small.
Yeah. And it was funny because when I found the Wim Hof Method, what attracted me was the cold showers. I was like, I get to take cold showers and tell people that I'm taking cold showers and nobody else is doing it. Look at me. And so lo and behold, I come to this workshop, and that was the thing that stuck out. Was I got in the water, and for the first time in my life, the room made in my head turned off completely. And I had never experienced something like that. And what I found over the next, 5 or so years was the breath work was actually the thing that was really terraforming my inner landscape. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about breath work and maybe how you found the Wim Hof Method and just the effects that it's had on you and the people you work with.
Yeah, of course. And let's say present day, for me, it got a whole new place in a way in all my modalities that I work with. Because to be honest, I don't want to be a one-dimensional mentor that's just working with one modality. I always make the joke, if people would see the image that we're having here on the camera behind me, there would be like 60 or 70 certifications. And at the same time, it doesn't. matter. It's more like you don't want to get stuck in that one-dimensional modality. But if people would ask me, what are, let's say, the most profound modalities that you've gathered, worked with, specialized into the years, the Wim Hof Method is at least one of, let's say, four, I would say. And the reason that for me, the Wim Hof Method, first of all, how did I discover it? I already got many certifications in those days around coaching, but it was always on such a cognitive level, like, okay, what is your challenge? And then I hated this question. So I was like, how do you feel about this challenge? And I was like, I want to pull you over the table or something like that, because I feel shit when I present this problem with you. And we can try to analyze it and we can dive deep in all the where it come from. But at that time, to be really honest, I was so still disconnected from myself. So I understood personal development and spiritual development and meditation and that kind of. I understood it, but I wasn't connected with myself, at least enough to really embody it and integrate it. And if this world is new for you, you're like all those words, you think like it's really spiritual, but at the same time, it's really down to earth. I always make the joke, or when you see a beautiful person physically attractive to you, you feel things in your body. But most of us are so disconnected for ourselves. So then if we have a hard time to access that kinesthetic data. And for me, the Wim Hof method, like being a Dutch person myself, like played out some of the coaching courses in the Netherlands already. I was a little bit like bored with that. I'm like, if there are people that can do amazing things on this planet, more, let's say, zoomed in and dialed in on one specific part, and I would collect and learn that part, and I would collect multiple of those parts, I would, leave the harbor of being one-dimensional and have access to all those modalities. And I did my research and I found Wim Hof, and he's a Dutch guy. So yeah, that was relatively easy. Like really, let's say, those world records in those times, because that was the only thing that, and we're talking now around 2014, 13, something like that. So nobody did cold showers. Like they, if you become, if you talked about Wim Hof, the only thing that some Dutch people knew was for the national television is world records, and they called him that eccentric person. But for me, like those world records, something clicked internally with me. And I was like, okay, but if somebody is able to do those magnificent things like sitting in ice for a really long time, but also running a marathon in Africa without water, hanging between two hot air balloons on a cable with one finger, I like, hey, he at least is good in something mentally, and there was no science what it would do for you physically really at that time. So I was like, okay, let's research that. And I remember signing up for an instructor weekend. So it was the first part of what they call in those days. And it was really nothing, to be honest, with all respect. Like we all need to start somewhere. It was just a weekend full of play with Wim, that in eccentric personality, a small group of Dutch people that were probably crazy or courageous. And sometimes that's really close by, to spend 2 days doing a lot of cold exposure and breathing. And I was thinking, I did a lot of bodybuilding in that time. Like, hey, when we did the cold exposure, I will go in first and I will show you all how it needs to be done. And I stepped in and I felt like such a little boy, wanted to get out, getting out. But doing it more that weekend, I was like, I feel so good. And what you're saying yourself, Scott, not only the cold exposure, also the breathing in a way was way more powerful. Like for me, the cold exposure, to compare it to something, it's a little bit like drinking a giant Red Bull without the negative side effects. You feel like energetic, on top of the world, strong. But the breath work in a way is like a gateway to that connection with yourself. And of course, what you're saying, when you go into the cold, the minding and the thinking needs to stop. But it was for me my first, let's say, encounter with body work. And immediately I like, hey, there's something to be found there for me personally. Let's sign up to become an instructor. And in those days, that was just just like the weekend, a week playing in Poland with Wim, climbing a snowy mountain in really the most, in those days safety wasn't really a thing, in the most stupidest conditions, but at the same time learning a lot about ourselves, learning a lot about nature, our internal nature, and also having that direct access to a personality as Wim. And of course, as you know, it triggered a whole cascade effect for me, meeting up all those nationality and later become let's say a well-known international trainer and mentor in many modalities.
Yeah. It I mean, it's wild to see what it's come, in 10 I found the Wim Hof method in 10 years, and it was nothing back then. You were just being one of the trainers back then, and now it's a cult following with millions of followers and hundreds of thousands of practitioners and events all over the world. And you mentioned something that I'd love to dive in, because I saw the same mirror in you, and it's one of the reasons I hired you. But you talked about, you'd gone on this weekend with Wim, or this week with Wim, and you played, and it was
Yeah.
always something that really I witnessed in you. And I think at the time I didn't even necessarily want more of it, but I noticed it as like a lightheartedness that I was like, I don't have that, and so these Instagram stories of you and Ing and her son, and playing with Nerf guns, and doing puzzles and playing games and all this stuff. And over the years, I have really come to understand and practice the importance of play. And I'd love for you to just share about the play and the wonder and the lightheartedness that you embody and bring to the world as well.
Yeah, I love that you bring up that topic, because if we would go back in time, just a little bit before I came coach and also dove into the Wim Hof method, like I was so, and sometimes I still are, to be honest, like so fucking serious in everything I do. Like life, yeah, you're raising your hand, you recognize that. But even personal development, like taking it so seriously, reading all the books, making all the notes, and doing everything perfectly, like, and don't be wrong, it needs to be perfect. So even, let's say, the journey for me of personal development in the beginning was really serious. But what I found out, and this is what Inge always says, like, okay, you surround yourself with people that you find those specific traits that you're at least intrigued by. And I found out really relatively early in the journey that the people that I really was attracted to, what you're saying yourself also, there's an attraction that is that lightheartedness and that is that playfulness, but also having mentors with 75 years old that are, let's say, doing still a lot of courses, but having fun and being unfiltered in their communication. They're sharing their truth, but at the same time, they're open enough to say, hey, what everything I say is not true. It's my reality. It's my truth that I'm sharing with you. And at the same time, it's a lie. And a Wim Hof, for example, play around like it, and you don't need to be that eccentric. But for me, it opened a little door within myself, like, hey, all those people that I'm attracted with, they have that playfulness. And when was the last time that I was really playful, unfiltered, no breaks anymore? So relatively early in the journey, I want to relearn that, because of course, as a kid, we all have that skill to play and being easy, being lighthearted, just moving through life a little bit more lighter. And I was like, okay, how can I unleash that within myself? And to be honest, it's something that's for me a continuously journey to become even better in play. Because when we're playful, we are more creative. We are learning because we're not that much focused on what the people around us are thinking. So I started to buy Lego for adults when it also was not that popular. Like nowadays, it's also really popular. I don't know how it's in the States, but you have those huge sets for adults nowadays. We have like, hey, laser guns from Nerf. Like, I love laser gaming as a kid. Like, let's buy them. And I was just crouching in my street and adult people walking by thinking I'm crazy. But at the same time, if you really look close to them, they had that huge smile on their face, like, I would like some of that too, right? So it's just a way of living. And it's also like, if you would see me now in front of a group, I don't take myself too seriously. I have a really serious side. So I'm not saying I figured it all out. I have a really serious side. But in, let's say, there are many occasions also in front of groups that I love to play, that I'm jumping around and talking about really serious, profound things, but with that lightheartedness. Like even here in this room, I just bought a brand new airsoft gun, like with the BBs that you can shoot each other. Like it's the most powerful thing in the world. And it's like, it's amazing. And this, that, and like, and even when I say it to you, my smile comes up and I feel it moving through my body. And to be honest, that's the essence for me for personal development, leadership, spirituality, because you get access to cognitive data and other types of data within ourselves that are way more enriched than just I understand personal development. I've read all the books, did all the courses, but I'm still tight as fuck.
Yes. Man, I can so deeply resonate with that because for such a long time I had a similar kink, which was personal development from a forceful and we're going to do this, we're going to become the optimizer and the best and all this stuff. And yeah, it became this stick I beat myself with, you know. And what I realized was that you can't optimize a life you don't choose, that you don't love. and
Exactly.
and that was, you know, probably one of the reasons I hired you in the first place, was like, help me optimize my life and get it all together and make a bunch of money and do all this stuff. And
Exactly.
this gentle invitation, but for not from a place of force that you had. You were like, hey Scott, like if you want to have fun and enjoy this thing too, that's allowed. And
I
you
remember
know,
saying it to you.
yeah, yeah. And it's beautiful to see how we as coaches attract, you know, previous versions of ourselves who want to be liberated from the things that we are liberated from now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and for me, that at least is a interesting aspect. Even, let's say, the cultural aspects, like the countries, like, you know, I work internationally. There's such a huge difference between cultures. Like, hey, you're living in the States, and I love working with people from the States. Like, they they are really, yeah, they are creating results, and they, and one side they're really creative. It's like, let's say, the land of opportunities, as we always see in the Netherlands. Like, it's, everything is possible, and all of you, like in your own ways, have that mentality in the core. But at the same time, like in the Netherlands, we have more of a social structure. Like when you're sick, you just pay a small amount for getting sick. So you always have a little bit of that catching net that will take care of you. There's a downside to that, but also a plus side to that, because the downside, what I see working with people from the States, the tightness is even more there, because you don't have really that social safety structure. You need to move on. There is no not moving on, because if you're not doing that, you're living on the street and you don't have a social system that in one way takes care of you. And that's just my interpretation. I'm not saying it's the reality, but yeah, let's say I'm always looking for patterns, and that's what I sometimes see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been really interesting to move to Hawaii and notice the difference here in the spirit of aloha and this like get work done, but also enjoy the aina, the land and all that it has to offer. And it has been really confronting to like chill. I was telling my partner Amber last night. I moved into my new place and everything's unpacked and I hung all the paintings and the TV and all this stuff. And I'm like sitting there twiddling my thumbs last night. Like, what do I do? What do I do now? Like
Exactly.
now that I've now that my and I what I said to her was that the distractions to my peace were being distracted by my doing.
Exactly.
And to just sit there last night and be like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to revel in the fact that this is my new space and I absolutely love it and I don't have to do anything. And actually what came through is I want to do a puzzle.
Exactly. And in a way, at the same time, you solved a really important puzzle of being human. Like, how well can you deal with being bored? Like, we all know little kids, and when it's holiday time, and in the Netherlands it's starting, it's like 6 7 weeks of holiday time, And they go to that phase of, let's say, in the beginning, everything is fantastic because you have all that free time. You can do whatever you want. But then the boredom sets in, and then they get so frustrated with themselves. Like even my boy, like sometimes laying on the floor and bashing, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But then after, in the last phase of that, he has grown emotionally, as a human, physically. A lot of integration happens. But for most of us adults, we're always, let's say, busy being busy, because the moment we slow down, we're confronted with ourselves. And that's a beautiful thing, like realizing that you want to do a puzzle and maybe being grateful for the new house that you have. But we also get restless because there is a backlog of emotional maintenance within ourselves that we maybe are running away from for a really long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After we worked together for 2 years, for 2020 to 2022. And after that, I went deep into therapy to deal with that emotional backlog of, just a lot of childhood stuff and tears and fears that I had not confronted. And I'm I'm curious if we could take a little bit of a left turn, because one of the certifications and titles and things you offer to the world is this master NLP practitioner,
Yeah.
and this modality. And I know a lot of people have probably heard the terminology, but could you just give us an explanation and kind of an application and framework as to what this modality is?
Yeah. And I think to let the people hear and see where I'm coming from is like when I was finished in the Netherlands doing those coaches courses, I always was really interested in going into the source as much as was possible. Because if you would look up in, let's say, in the States, an NLP course, there are many. If you would, let's say, look it up in the Netherlands, there are many. And I can honestly say a lot of them don't really understand the true essence of NLP. Like even me giving words to it now, if you would ask me in an hour, I probably would have a little bit of another description. But what I did is I first, let's say, I did practitioner, master coach, did my trainers in the Netherlands. But then I went also to the founders of those modalities. In first place, John Grinder, and later also Richard Bandler. They were like a little bit of that rock star duo that started neuro-linguistic programming in the 70s. And let's say the basic foundation to really make it simple, and it's way more refined than I would ever, let's say, the words that I'm using right now, is they were in a way looking for patterns. They both had a scientific background and they were looking for the patterns where we can find the difference in what is making truly the difference. So let's say we get 10 people in our occupation, all coaches. There are, from those 10, maybe one or two that maybe are better, whatever that means, maybe in connecting with people or maybe in getting results. There are maybe one or two that are way better than the rest of the group, not as human beings, but just when it comes to the results. Then, okay, if we can distill, decode the patterns of communication, activities, mindset that the agents of change in this case has, and we can also make that transferable to others, we can help others to lift their skill set and their competences to a higher level. So it's in a way, the basic thing is the science of what is the difference that makes the difference. They did that in the 70s with, let's say, therapists, psychology, sales, even the US Army with snipers. Like, okay, what is that one person doing differently than the rest? Let's decode that, recode that, and make it transferable to others. But also, okay, a family therapist, like, how is that one person able to create the same results as doing another person, another therapist in, let's say, 10, 15 months? There are certain language patterns that create a connection when we use that. Hey, let's say, decode that, recode it, put it into books, teach people this, and also see if we can get similar kind of results. And from that is, in a way, and you can see it in multiple ways, that is literally what they did, and the mindset. What came from that is a whole series of processes and techniques for agents of change, coaches, mentors, but also people just in the sales world or whatever, let's say, application we're looking for. But at the same time, it's more of a principle based, open source way that we can. It's not stuck in a container. This is what it is. It is constantly growing and evolving, because maybe you are doing something, let's say, with breath work. And even like when I spoke to one of the founders, like, hey, you're doing the Wim Hof method in the beginning days. How can we create, let's say, a state change with breath work and connecting it to all the knowledge that is already available from neuro-linguistic programming? So yeah, you have all kind of, let's say, further evaluations. And John Grinder went into new code NLP that works really a lot with high performance states. I love working with new code NLP. But Richard Bandler, I just came back from Italy, is doing things that's called neuro hypnotic repatterning. Like, how well can you feel good? Because most of us human beings can only feel 20% of what we're capable of feeling good and feeling amazing. And could you imagine, and people listening to this, that you're moving through your days and you're realizing I only can feel good around 20% of my maximum capacity, and I would be able to lift that to the next level? How would you approach life differently? And also more of the work of Richard Bandler, what I really love, he says we're learning machines. So we're a whole set of patterns, and it already starts in the morning. Like, will you snooze or won't you snooze? Oh, that's a pattern. Okay, both have, let's say, something that we a price that we pay, but also a gain, because maybe we can call it self-love or self-care. But at the same time, the price that you pay maybe is that, like, I'm every time getting stressed on my work or running my company. Okay, if a pattern is not working out for you, how can we help you? How can I help you to relearn it and learn something new? Because if you only can do it in one way, you're not free. You're stuck in your patterns. And when you can learn new things, you're experiencing more freedom. And that's, in many words, a little bit of the description of neuro-linguistic programming. And for me, even after teaching this stuff since I think it's 2017 or something like that, for the last 2 years, I've a little bit, I said, start to get it. To be really honest, I start to get it. Like, I'm a trainer in let's say, many of those modalities around neuro-linguistic programming, but every day I'm learning something new, but also about myself and about being human, because we are all a set of learning machines, and we do, like, we're not thinking about driving a car. We do it naturally. Like, we've learned it, it's installed it's in our subconscious. We don't need to think about driving a car. And that is most of the time really nice, because that saves us a lot of energy. If you with a lot of awareness needing to drive a car, you burn out or stressed out every time you need, okay, well, I need to put my hand in my pocket. I need to get the key out. I need to press the button. I need to sit. I need to turn the key. I need to move the wheel a little bit. I need to be aware of that. That's so much data that we're needing to process. So we put it in our subconscious. And as long as that's working, it's fine. But at the same time, when you come home and your partner is just raising his or her eyebrow and you're going into a tantrum because you think that he or she is not liking you, hey, maybe that is not true, and at least probably not that helpful. So can you discover more things about yourself? And it's also in a way to take back that leadership about yourself, instead of being a victim, being on back of the bus. You want to be in front of the bus, getting the steering wheel in your hands.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny. I was just thinking about that autopiloting of driving a car 2 days ago. Like, oh yeah, this thing is like fully integrated now. And you brought up the idea of like, searching for patterns. And
Yeah.
originally, because of the audience and because of who we work with, I was like, you know what, I want to ask them about the patterns of high performers and CEOs and whatnot. And as I sat with it for a second, I was like, you know what? And you said it, and the reason it switched was because you were talking about how we're all working to be human, and that was the original name for this podcast, was the To Be Human podcast. And the Embracing Human podcast came about as an opportunity to say, like, where do we embrace our lives, and how do we embrace the full totality of the human experience? And so the part I want to ask you about is the patterns of relationships. And the reason is I've always witnessed your and Ing's relationship is incredibly beautiful and rich and deep and connected. And I still, I don't know why this is coming to me, but you two were on holiday somewhere. I don't remember where, but you took a picture of an alleyway, and there was this little cafe that you sat in the middle of this alley, and you just got coffee there together. And it like reminded me of how much I love to do that. Like I used to be the guy who was going to find the best restaurant with the highest reviews and the coolest drinks, and he was going to
Yeah.
make sure everybody knew he went there, because then he would feel special and he would feel important and he would feel noticed. And now what I find myself doing as well, I still do that sometimes because I like that. But now I also find the cafe that nobody's ever heard of with the auntie in the back who's been doing this for 30 years, and she doesn't have a marketing plan because she doesn't give a shit. She just does what she does because she loves it. And I want to sit in that cafe just as equally. And so I'd love, that's all a tangent to say, I'd love for you to talk about what patterns you notice in relationships and how individuals can grow their connectability to their partner even more.
Ooh. And the reason that I'm saying ooh is, oh, there are so many angles to explore this. And it's like, as you know, I mostly work with men. But when I do courses, I also work a lot with women. So I think, and also working with more than 40 nationalities, I have a little bit of that sneak peek of being human when it comes to relationships. And there are some patterns that I think really are interesting. And I'm focusing mostly on men, so I will keep it a little bit from that perspective. But first of all, most men in a relationship are stuck. And this sounds really strange if you hear this, for example, but they're a little bit stuck in teenage mode.
Mm-hmm.
They're just teenagers.
Yep.
Like, and I was one myself, so I'm not any better than whatever. Like, but at work, most men, they are fully in their talent. When they're in there running their business, they're fully in their talent. They're doing amazing. They feel almost like the rock star. But then when they come home, they feel like, hey, I'm tired, and oh, there is something on the counter that needs to be cleaned. Oh, if I will just let it be there, probably my wife will do that. And that's just one simple example. Like, okay, she will take care of that slack if I don't do it. Ah, the dirty dishes. Okay, I put them also in the sink, and I will wait till tomorrow because tomorrow is also a good day to do that instead of doing it right now. And you fucking know that your wife loves it when you do it immediately. So, but the teenager in us, like, oh yeah, I'm tired. I did all that work, etc., etc. The other thing when it comes to relationship is most men are just disconnected. They are not at home. They they get in their car after finishing their job or their company, or they close the door in the company. They just step into their car. They open the door at home, and they are still at work. They are not connected with themselves. They have a shitty relationship with themselves. So they can never, ever have a really true, deep, committed relationships with somebody else. Because a good relationship starts with a really good relationship with yourself. Does it need to be perfect and finished? Absolutely not. But if we uncover the hood about being a man, and I'm talking mostly working with successful men in the outside world, the beautiful cars, the beautiful houses, the filled bank account, they are not happy in the relationship they have with themselves. So they sedate, they cheat, they watch porn, they drink, they play games, they go to the gym every day because we're thinking all those things like, oh, the porn and that kind of stuff and the cheating, that's negative, and going to the gym, that's healthy. But if it's a distraction to being distracted from what you're feeling on the inside, it's still a distraction. And the other thing is that we're also stuck in our relationship with our how we started our relationship. First of all, most men never broke the connection with their mother. So they still have a really deep, not updated relationship with their mother. So when they're coming into a relationship with a partner, most of the time the mothers find it threatening that there is another woman in life. but they're also stuck. Like, okay, we liked each other physically, we have a good time, but then, okay, your business is maybe growing. That means also, hopefully, also that you as a human being are growing. But how is the relationship growing? Is it still stuck? Like, I'm now 10 years with my fiance. We're going to getting married this year, as you know. But we're still like a lot of people are still stuck in that 10 year ago when I, for example, met Ing. But for us, it's like every time there's a lot of awareness around our other relationship with ourselves, then the relationship with each other. And that doesn't mean it's perfect, but because it's not perfect and we're every day more honest about being not perfect, it opens up space. It opens up a field, and it opens up the, let's say, the conscious choice of every day saying, Daniel, I say yes to the relationship with myself, and I say yes to the relationship with Ing, even with all the fuck ups that I made along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that one entirely. And I can not only, I can say this from a place of resonating that, the way I used to occur in relationships was the tantruming prince, that it's my kingdom and I want it. And why isn't it this way? And you should do the dishes and you should do everything I want. And I should get sex whenever I want because I'm the king, but I'm not. I act like a fucking boy,
Exactly.
and a lot of the work I did through men's work and the Mankind Project and otherwise really helped me see the responsibility of being a man. And
Exactly.
and it wasn't until Chester died. I said that the day Chester died, I became a man because I held his hand while he died. Like, that is not a boy thing to do. I was initiated into manhood. And, there's a part of, not even, I was going to say there's a part of me that's embarrassed, but I'm not, because I'm so grateful that I actually took the journey. I've worked with men that are older and they're like, I feel like I'm so behind, and I'm 50 or 60 years old and I'm just learning this now. And it's like, thank God you're not 80 or 90. Thank God you figured it out this lifetime. And there's a topic I wanted to talk on because I think it's one that's not well discussed, but it's one that is well experienced, which is reliance on pornography specifically, but also just some of these other coping mechanisms that we don't really talk about, how men struggle, and how we don't have a good set of tools to cope with the difficulties of life.
Yeah. Now, in a way, and before I answer this question, I'm smiling on the inside. I always have a strong internal voice that is saying, like, the thing about being behind. I think we're always behind because as long as there's not awareness and consciousness, you don't know. So the moment you realize, oh fuck, I'm now 43. Like, yeah, I am behind because I could also have realized this earlier, but I didn't. So I always behind in this journey, and as long as consciousness comes in, a fantastic. And if not, you're not knowing it anyway. So it's not really immediately the biggest challenge. But at the same time, awareness, and that's also the nice bridge with the pornography and the sedation part. It's like I I went with a really rough patch with Ing a few years back. And I'm really transparent in that. I I fucked up big time. I had an affair for almost a year, and we went through that together. Like, I confessed what I did, and we had a long conversation with each other for a long period of time. We both said yes to each other because for Ing it was the easy way to say, "Hey, okay, I'm not gonna be in this container anymore. I just step out." But she said yes to me, and she asked me, do you also still feel a yes for me? Because also for me, it's like, okay, I could have made another choice, but for me it was never a choice. I wanted to be with her, but I was in that point where I realized, like, hey, the relationship with Daniel is not okay. Daniel wants to, let's say, blow things up when everything becomes more calm and peaceful, what we spoke about. Because every time when things became quiet and peaceful, restlessness set in, and I wanted to sedate myself with certain things, even working in personal development for several years already. So I knew it and I was living it for a really good, but I still had my demons too. And I still have my demons nowadays. It's more like, hey, you're getting more acquainted, you're dating your demons in a better way. But in, let's say, before I went into that dark hole with myself, resulting in that affair, and also saying this to Ing, I started to, let's say, found a pattern again, a pattern of sedation, fleeing, hiding away. And there are many, we all have many, but at least porn also came up as one of those patterns to, let's say, flee away from reality. So what I did is like, okay, let's do a Google search for porn addiction. And the reason why is like, as a young boy from 15 years old, I always was really into IT. I came across porn as, yeah, in that time it was already available online. And I was intrigued by it as every young man, but it became a pattern and became a habit. But it was never, let's say, hindering my life in a way that I couldn't perform, that I couldn't do my work, that I needed to watch porn at work or whatever. No, it was more as a relaxation tool. And I think many men can relate to that. It's, oh, let's get the pressure off and let's relax a little bit, watch some porn, and yeah, I feel better. So I typed in after that let's say when the dust settled in a little bit, what we went to, like porn addiction, just to become a little bit more clear about, yeah, what's coming up from that. And then when you research porn addiction, it's really only in a way focused on not being able to perform in everyday life. And I'm like, hey, this is interesting. So it's not a problem if you can just operate in everyday life. But how is it shaping my reality starting as a 15-year-old boy, watching porn and doing that regular? Like even a lot of men come here to say, yeah, I only watch porn 2 times a week. And that was, let's say, me also like 5 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't remember the timeline anymore. So I was like, let's completely stop with porn, to have a contrast the first time in my life, to really make a decision like stop it fully, delete that online connection because yeah, you have your hard drive and with that kind of stuff, like really delete it and experience what potentially would be different, because I didn't know, I didn't have any reference, and I did any further studies. I didn't went into the dopamine hits, because we can talk about the science for hours around this stuff. It was really a pragmatical research with Daniel, just being me and going to that experience. And just 13 months later, I started to reflect like, what is different? And the interesting thing is everything is different. And I'm not going to say everything was better, because no, that is not true. Because you take away sedation, and that means if you don't replace it for other sedation, the things that you're sedating becomes more present. And I'm like, oh, those are those parts of myself that I didn't want to confront, didn't want to connect to, didn't want to face. And porn was that sedation mechanism. So when I took it away, I had really tough moments in those 13 months, being really confronted with myself. But by going through it, that backlog of emotional shit that I, as a human being in a way, was supposed to plow through, confront. I also sometimes call it facing the dragon. Like we love the treasure that is in the cave as we go on an adventure, but we don't want to fight the dragon. But in this case, it was fighting my dragons, because every time I would fight a dragon, there was also insight. There was more self-love. There was more acceptance. There was more freedom. And again, it sounds really nice and a beautiful end goal, but it is still, until the day of today, it's harder, because you take away one sedation. And I think I'm now more than 2.5 years and I'm not watching porn anymore. But the relationship with yourself, the relationship with your wife, your sexual relationship is like, it's through the roof. Because looking back, my education around sexuality let's say, was porn. So what is, Ing and I said to each other, we don't know anything about sex, to be honest. We were just like we say, and we said to each other, shall we just be beginners again when it comes to sex? And I'm like, wow. And I realized that every time I had sex, I had to, let's say, a DVD player in my head was like, okay, what kind of porn movie do I need to select to have the whole operating system move, the physical experience? Like, because there was no experience of being in the present moment with your, in this case, my wife or my fiance, to have sex, because there was always visual input as a reference to get into a sexual aroused state. And letting go of that. And I'm not saying again it's perfect, because it isn't, but it is more of a clear, truthful, opening experience. I'm also not going to say that I never miss it. Also not true. That's bullshit. Because if you do something for such a long time, it's like, that would be interesting. But I don't want to be in that place anymore, because to be honest, we're not talking about porn. There are so many other situations that we have to face as human beings. So yeah. And I also, when I went into that journey, came across many other men, because I started to open up about my own experiences. Like, hey, at a certain point, I recorded a podcast. I think it's a year ago or something like that. And really, the timeline, my mind is a little bit all over the place with that. But like, I made that podcast, and it felt really almost literally sounds strange when we talk about porn, but I felt naked about sharing and, let's say, working on for such a long time on the human performance side, and like, oh, this is something that I'm still doing. It's a little bit like with what the man's saying to you. I'm already so old, and now I realize that, okay, yeah, but you first need to create a contrast to experience life differently. And for me, it is one of the, let's say, every man that I'm working with, I'm asking, do you watch porn? And not say judging them or saying it's wrong, but I want to have, let's say, if to have a little bit of an audit where somebody is, do you watch porn? Not, but I need that as input to see what kind of sedation mechanisms my clients or the man have that I'm working with. And one thing to wrap this up, because I feel that I'm on this team with you also, but it's also like, when I'm working with women in groups, like teaching neuro-linguistic programming, they make always this joke, or a lot of them make this joke. I have 3 kids at home, 2 young ones and my partner. And I'm like, the first time I was smiling, we're like, hey, that's a nice joke. But later I realized how sad it is that women on this planet feel so alone, because we're just not able to transform in our full potential, owning our sexuality. It's really also giving away your sexuality, owning our own sexuality, owning our responsibility, doing the stuff that we don't want to do, and also not only shine at work, but also shine at home. That you're not only using that talent that you have in your working life, but also in your private life, that your family and your kids, like, if you just resonate a little bit what we're talking about right here, and you're a man watching porn, and your reality is being influenced by watching porn, and you have kids in your life, and kids model us. So some of the unconscious behavior that you're now demonstrating and showing to your kids, they will learn and they will assimilate in their lives. So you're not doing it only for yourself. You're not doing it only for your partner. You're not doing it for your business. You're doing it also for your kids and their kids eventually.
You shared so many good things there, Daniel. I really appreciate your full openness and honesty. And yeah, I can resonate. At the beginning of the year, I too walked away from porn, and it has been such an eye-opening journey of how much energy I was leaking. As I
Mm-hmm.
as I would joke, I was blowing my dreams into a napkin. And you
That's a
know,
nice one for a t-shirt.
because sexual energy is creative energy, and it is this pacification and the sedation of like, oh, I'm feeling too much right now, so let me just tone it down a bit. And the same thing was happening with weed, marijuana, cannabis, and I was doing them at not the same time, but like, daily for both of them ish. And to stop both of them, I really appreciated what you said, that it doesn't make it easier, because it doesn't, like I think there's a Bible quote that like when you expel one demon, there's 12 more ready to take its place. And so the
Exactly.
opportunity to find new coping strategies and find new ways of being and ways to relate to life that are more in line with the version of me that I'm calling in. Because the version of me that is up to what I quote unquote want to be up to in the world, he's not jerking off and smoking weed. I know it. I know it in my body, and I cannot lie to myself. And there's no way around that other than action through and towards that compelling future. And it really makes me want to go towards something else that I think is a really important topic. It's what we talked about in our catch up, and it's honesty
Mm.
and this aspect to I think we can both mirror this in our relationships where there is an opportunity to be radically honest with ourselves and therefore our partners, or with our partners and therefore ourselves. And
Yeah.
I loved what you said about being a beginner again, because when Amber and I first met, she was fresh out of a 20-year marriage, and
Mm.
I was like, oh God, like this woman's not been with a new guy in 20 years. And I told her, I was, before we became intimate, I told her, I was like, I don't know if I could do this, because I feel like I'm going to be an utter disappointment to you. Like I'm
Mm.
going to let you down. And that terrifies me. Like I don't want to feel those feelings of shame and disappointment and lack and all that. And she was so kind and gracious in the experience to just let me be with that and be with me in it, and to feel the energetic dissipation of that heaviness from my body gave way to a whole new experience of relating that I had never really experienced before, because I was so busy protecting myself from the exiled parts that I believed that she couldn't love, because I didn't love
Yeah.
those parts. And so this opportunity to be radically honest, with ourselves and life and our partners and those we share it with, right? Share life with. And I'd love to hear, because I know honesty is a big thing for you these days. And I'd love to hear, how you've been exploring that and how you bring that to others.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Like, I think for the last 3, 4 years, like honesty is nice to talk about it when it's comfortable, right? Like, yeah, let's be honest. Let's be congruent. Let's be authentic. And then we want to do that. But at the same time, when it's getting really more to the core, a little bit like what you're feeling, then it's uncomfortable. So when it comes to really speaking in honesty, and I'm not saying the truth because that is something different, what is truth and what isn't truth, but let's say sharing in a way your reality with somebody else, because that's when we talk about honesty, like it's our perception of the world or of that situation. But it's also like when you truly share that unfiltered, and when it comes really to the core, it is getting uncomfortable. That's why I always love the saying with the ice bath, like getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And the same thing in a way, and that's the transfer for me. Like when it comes to honesty, that's also getting comfortable, becoming comfortable in being uncomfortable. Because what I see is that a lot of men in the core, and I know that a lot of men can't, maybe don't really resonate with yet. It's more like when you uncover, let's say, all the layers. But deep, most of us feel really unsafe, to be honest. And it
Yep.
doesn't mean that they had an unsafe childhood or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But in the core, we feel unsafe. We don't feel worthy enough. So we're always, let's say, making ourselves bigger in the outside world. But when we feel truly unsafe, we also manipulate the shit in the outside world. That not meaning that we're consciously, I'm going to lie and I'm going to hurt others. That's not what I'm saying. But we're manipulating the shit out of things because in essence, we're not really feeling safe and grounded with ourselves. So we are controlling the environment. And then when it comes to sharing your truth, especially when you know that that could lead to a confrontation, many people stay away from it. Or you have the opposite. They try every opportunity to fight, but that's still let's say, a distraction from what they truly feel. Like anger and being angry all the time is also, let's say, a shield to not show what you truly feel inside. It's still untruthful.
Yes.
And the moment you start to speak your truth, it feels really uncomfortable because you're, in a way, afraid of the backlash, or afraid of, oh, will somebody still like me, or afraid of being rejected, or afraid of, yeah, being good enough, or also for finances when it comes to the business side. I literally do a lot of work with my clients at the moment, also in regards to their relationship, to let them experience using different words. So, for example, most of what I hear from a lot of American men, but also Dutch men, is like, especially also talking to women from also other continents, other countries, is like, from that unsafety, we're not really clear and decisive and grounded in what we say. So, for example, a Dutch man, I'm keeping it a little bit with the Dutch guy. Like, if when it comes to a woman, if they want to go out, or if he wants to have dinner in a restaurant, he would say something, and I'm generalizing now, so there's way more nuance than what I would. And let's say it's a podcast, but he would say, "Would you like to go out for dinner tonight?" And a lot of women don't like this. Why? Because the woman still needs to make a choice. But what the guy actually wants is to go to a restaurant with his wife, or just have a good time with each other. So I then sometimes let them change the words. And I say, okay, let's say it like this. Honey, I reserved a restaurant for tonight. Let's go out for dinner. I reserved this spot at this time. Is that okay for you? So there's still an opening always to say no, but there is a lot of, let's say, decisiveness, leadership, and grounding, and a more masculine tone, you could almost say, in it. But there's still the choice of to say no, because we're not dictators or whatever. But there is a lot of, there's way more leadership into that. And also in work-wise, saying things like that, are you, let's say, and that's why neuro-linguistic programming is so amazing, because it looks really clear out at our language and the effect of our language on ourselves and others. Like, what we see is that we're not really clear and concise in our communication. We keep it a little bit like fake. There's not really concrete in what we want to say. And that leaves so much room for interpretation, all because we don't really want to say clearly what we actually feel or actually want to say. I don't want to stay longer in this job. I'm going to start my own company. Or, yeah, maybe it's time to do something different. And with all respect, that's a fucking lie, because you feel, and that's the kinesthetic layer, that you want to make another decision, that you're afraid. Okay, say, hey, I want to start my own my own company. I am really afraid, or I want to scale up my company, but I have experience from the past, and I'm a little bit afraid of if it will work out this. But I will still do it. There is a tone, there is a direction in the words that we choose, and most of us, and in a way, we're all doing it in a way all the time. So I need to correct myself. We're all constantly lying to ourselves. And that doesn't mean we want to hurt ourselves. We don't want to hurt others. It's a protection mechanism, and we're just not aware of it. But the more clear we become, and we also start to connect with what we feel, what we want, and are not afraid of being rejected, so working on our internal safety, we say, hey, I'm going to leave this company and I'm going to start my own company because this is what I need to do. Am I afraid? Hell yes. But I'm still going to do it. And you even hear it, like, I can feel it. I don't know if you can feel it, but that's like, hey, you are my wife. Like, when I went to the shit with Ing and I said, I want you to be my wife, it was not from an analytical cognitive perspective anymore. It was a good relationship with Daniel. And from that good point, I say, I love you. I want you in my life. I don't need anybody else. I still want to run away sometimes, but when I want to run away, that's the truth. I sometimes say like I want to run away again, but now I say it instead of keeping it into the darkness.
Yes.
If that makes sense, at least.
100%. No, and I really appreciate that because it came full circle back to a pattern that I wanted to talk about, which was, and it's something I've noticed in myself, and Amber mirrors it to me, is when I'm not doing great, internal landscape is not the best. I'm good. I'm all right. I'm fine.
Exactly.
I'm not bad. And we as mirrors to each other, she can feel that. She's like, bro, I love you, and I know you're withholding. And she doesn't even do it in this like calling out way. She's just like, okay, well, if there was something there, what might it be? It's like,
Exactly.
I'm really annoyed at this. Like I'm really frustrated. She's like, okay, like you want to talk about it? You don't have to. You're like, I've been really frustrated lately, and in certain aspects of my life, and she's just so delicate to just be like, like last night she asked me, and she's like, we don't have to talk about this today. If you don't want, we could talk about it tomorrow. And I was like, no, it's fine. Just giving me the space and permission to navigate my own inner landscape without being like, well, if I don't do it this way, then she doesn't love me. And this I was writing a song once on the guitar, and the line that came through was, I'm starving for affection but rejecting rejection.
Exactly.
Like I so deeply want to be connected to my partner and my life and my friends and my family, but I have been so worried about feeling rejected and being abandoned and all these things that I'm good, I'm okay, I'm fine, no big deal. But in my internal world, I'm like, I just want a hug. I just want to not
Exactly
be
that.
okay.
Exactly that. And the more you can allow that with your partner, but also within your business, like,
Mm,
I teach groups, like when I feel sad or when something is happening, like the first time I cried in front of a group, not intentionally, not to put up a show, but really like from like, no, no, I had it several times, but I remember a course that I was doing for Wim Hof's organization, and I really designed the whole course, and we're finished, and I'm through the whole day, I'm looking at the participants and they're amazing human beings, but they would also have the feeling like, hey, maybe this is the last time. So I'm looking at them and I start to cry. I start to cry just in front of the group. And to be honest, like we've learned in a way with all good intention from our parents, but like, okay, to stuff feelings and emotions away, let's say, because that was the label that literally, like when we were crying as a little boy, they say to you, when you're crying in the grocery store and your parents don't want to deal with it, they just literally say, stop crying, be strong. Okay, so when I'm not crying, I'm strong. Well, and then I get validation from my parents. So, hey, crying is not a good thing. But the moment I starting to become more truthful to myself and there so also to the people around me, and being able to cry in front of a group of people that I really respected and they respected me, everything changed. Like
mm,
I work a
mhm.
lot with leaders from companies and they say, I want an open, authentic, congruent, let's say, organization culture. Okay, but how open and congruent are you with yourself, with your wife, with, let's say, your employees? And I see a tremendous result when, let's say, the CEO or something on that level shows up in that honesty. It's a simple truth in the whole organization because it's not then a cognitive concept anymore. It's something that you demonstrate as a leader yourself.
Mm.
Like people go to the fire for you when you be so truthful with what's going on and not crying like I'm a victim, I can't do this or whatever. No, it's like, okay, I feel sad, I feel happy, and you have the whole range and spectrum of emotions. Like I think the biggest challenge business owners have, it's like the figure eight, a double bind, because they feel that they can't go on anymore in the way that they are doing. So they want change, but to sustain what they are doing already. Because if they're not sustaining what they're doing already, they don't know where they will end up. And that's how it moves all the time. If I can't do it anymore, then blah, 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 blah. They don't know what happens then. So they think that they need to plow through. And that is killing them literally sometimes with that mindset. So the moment they are able, I call this throwing myself and letting them throw themselves on the sword. Like literally throw yourself on the sword. You cry, you say, I can't do this anymore and I can't do it in this way. I need help. Like most men, I did another podcast, it was published a few days ago. Like most men, the suicide rate in men is like all-time high. And it's because men feel alone, because we have an outside world that validates and recognizes success, but feeling shitty like you do, like even with our partners, like remember to the or imagine in the outside world you're not doing okay, and it's not that you every day say I'm not doing okay, I'm like whiny. Nay, that's Dutch. And then you say no, I'm not feeling well, I'm sad, I'm happy, I need help. You ask for people around you to support you, like with your partner, with Amber. It's not that you need to solve it, but when you speak out the truth and you use words for it, by the way, not only keeping it inside and analyzing the shit out of it, but you actually vocally express what is going on in the truth, not or let the honesty, don't call it truth, but your own honesty. This is going on in my inside world. Just putting words on it is enough sometimes, what I see here, for people to break in a good way, to break open and have that breakthrough, because it was simmering in the darkness for such a long time. So bringing it out in the outside world is the revelation.
Yes, 100% agree with that, Daniel. And the way I explain it is like if we are the antenna to source and this thing is a tuning fork, because the world works, the universe works in frequency, energy, and vibration, right? Then when I vocally speak this out and I move from my head through my vocal box into my heart, I attune this thing in a way that vibrationally matches my inner world, and then it allows for it to come out. And I was talking to my client yesterday, and he was like, he last week we had a call, and he was upset, about something, and he spoke it out. I was like, tell me about it. Share your frustrations. You really give yourself an opportunity to feel expressed. And he talked to me yesterday, and he was like, I'm not even mad. I'm totally fine with it. Like I've worked through it. It doesn't bother me anymore. It isn't triggering. And I was like, why do you think that is? And he's like, oh, because it's trivial. It's not a big deal. And I was like, what else? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, can I give you a reflection that I'm seeing? I told him, I was like, you allowed yourself to experience yourself. You gave yourself permission to have an experience about it. And once you did, those emotions aren't in you anymore. And now you get to choose how you want to show up for it. And he was like, yeah. I want to be supportive and I want to be helpful, and it's not a big deal. And great, here we are,
Yeah. But that also comes back to, let's say, the parent with the good intentions and being in that grocery store. Like when the kid falls, the emotion of being in pain or whatever, it's literally emotion, energy, emotion. But it's also, it's almost like an energy ball that's building up and it needs to be expressed. But we are learning to not express it, but to suppress it. And by doing so, emotionally, in a way, you could say we deteriorate, we rot on the bottom. But the moment we're letting that emotions out by what you're doing, or in the case of just vocally giving words to what you're feeling, in a way, you're just letting that energy that still was stored in your body, because physically I've seen many people getting sick from it, to be honest. Like the moment they let it out, their back pain is gone, their migraine is gone, their stomach problems are gone. Why? Because it's literally that energy is putting tension on the body, and the moment you let it go of, there is already such a huge transformation, because the energy is moved, but at the same time also the perspective has changed, because we're using the word. So also the perception of, let's say, that story, because the truth that we're experiencing are in a way a set of stories we're experienced from a different perspective, and then maybe your truth was not that truthful in a way, and the emotion is being processed. And the insight, what you're saying, it's trivial. It's not that big. It was because the emotion was still stuck, but now you let it go. And damn, you feel amazing.
100% agree. The disease creating disease, right? And I love how we met and where this conversation landed today, because we met in the container of the Wim Hof method and breathworks and ice baths and all this stuff, and those are tools, right? Those are strategies, and
Absolutely.
this is so much deeper as a concept of like, so many people are like, oh well, tell me the best breath work and tell me how to do the ice bath for the longest I can so I feel the best and all this stuff. And it's like, how about you just feel like shit? What if you just
Exactly.
let yourself feel like shit, and like, and that's, I think, to the point about men and feeling so alone, this whole lone wolf syndrome, that's, five men are 5 times more likely to kill themselves, 12 if you own a gun. And this
Exactly.
opportunity, the way I explain it to the men I work with, is like, I will go down in that hole and sit with you. I'll hold the flashlight while you sort through your shit. I can't do it for you, but I will be your brother in arms, and just to not be alone, to just have a friend in the shittiest of times while we look through our childhood trauma or our adult trauma or something else, or just practicing, like you said earlier, right? This thing that Bendler talked about, of feeling good. You know,
Exactly.
we got so good at feeling bad, we don't know how to feel good anymore. And that's like the
Exactly.
new thing is like, what if you felt amazing? It's like, whoa, I don't know, this isn't gonna last. So I better not jinx it, And it's like, what if this is the norm? What if
Yeah. And
you can
also,
feel good a lot more? Not always, but more.
exactly. And also to add to that is we also find some kind of pleasure, not consciously, but unconsciously in finding that pain. And there's a book that Ing is always talking about, like it's called Existential Kink. And
Mm.
I love that because it's like that emotional pain that we're, let's
Yeah.
say, we're getting addicted to not feeling good.
Yeah.
But what if we can break that cycle of, yeah, letting that also happen? So yeah, I think there's many to say for this. And what you're saying is also true. All the Wim Hof modalities and all the things how we started meeting up with each other, um, they're all just tools, and they also can become band-aids or sedation principles and techniques.
Hmm.
And I think, like, if we would go back in time, little Daniel unconsciously adapted strategies to always be sunshine boy, always being the happy kid, because that brought me a lot. But then I neglected the dark side and the other parts, and that eventually landed to some interesting experiences in my life. And now I'm like, what you're saying, I'm your friend sitting in the darkness with you. For me, also me personally, I became my own friend. And instead of
Hmm.
moving to the light, I'm focusing also, it's more balancing out, I can also say. But it's more like, okay, instead of moving from the darkness to the light, let's go into the darkness and bring the
Hmm.
light over there.
Yes.
Like it's the other way around, because
Yes.
every person in personal development, spirituality, like, yeah, be light and high vibration bullshit. With all respect, there's something to say for it. But if
Uh,
you be on that side, like also with the work Ing is doing, like being in that energetic clouds, he's calling it. If you're always there, you're not experiencing being human and feeling
yes.
also the more painful part of us. But the moment you do that too, like all of my mentors through the years, what they were saying were not only the words, but there is a deeper truth when you start to understand it, by not cognitively, but understand it in another layer. Like Wim Hof always talked about your inner nature, and it's a little bit like some slogan that you could put on a T-shirt, like it's about your inner nature. But if we look at nature, I'm living here in the Netherlands, and you have the rain, and you have the sunshine, and you have the wind, and you have the freezing periods. If we only would have sunshine, beautiful weather all the times, we wouldn't have our green trees. We wouldn't have our crops. We wouldn't even have food. We wouldn't have, let's say, the birds and all kinds of other. We need all flavors of nature not only on the outside, but also on the inside. So when we neglect certain parts of nature, we're neglecting our full potential and our full nature.
Yes, 100%. And I always get a kick when someone's like, I'm a light worker. I'm like, I'm a shadow worker, I guess, then. Like I'm here to go find the darkness, not to live there, but to bring light to it.
And I'm
Like,
schizophrenic worker. I do it to both. I'm just
yes, that's great, man. No, I love where this conversation went. I planned nothing for it other than full presence, and it was so beautiful. So thank you.
I love it. Thank you, Scott. It's so amazing to have this conversation with you, and I really want to compliment you where you are and the work you do in your own field. And that's really cool that that we started somewhere and that you're now here. So deep respect, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And you were a pivotal part of that, Daniel. So thank you for being there with me, and all the way from Bergen to Nitun in Norway, and then to a lot of virtual coaching, and now full circle, to the next level, to the next chapter here. Yeah. So where can people find more about you, Daniel, and the work you do, whether in person or online?
Yeah, so I hope you will put it in the description, because my name is so strange for many people. But DanielKluken.com, that's my website. And on social media, you can find me on all of those, on that name, on every platform. And then I'm talking mostly on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I also have the podcast, my own podcast, Exit the Rat Race. And that's a little bit, if you like this conversation, you probably like the other conversations also. So I'm still working a little bit on my marketing, because like I sometimes compare myself with that good wine. You need to do a little bit of work, chase me a little bit to work with me. But when you do, you have an amazing wine. So.
Right. I like that. Yeah, you've been vetted if you're able to track them down. No, everybody, I invite you to go check him out on socials and to check out the podcast. And if you are brave enough, go look up an in-person experience. We didn't get to talk about it, but I did a 5, maybe 7-day retreat with Daniel and his partner Ing in Nitun, Norway. And
through Intermountain expeditions.
Intermountain expeditions. And just to give you a taste of what some of those things are, we climbed a mountain. It was 1,000 meters high, 3,000 feet. It was 4 degrees Celsius out, and we were out, I think, for like 6 hours. Like
it was a long day. Yeah.
And by the way, we were just in boots and shorts. We had no gloves. I think I had a hat on. I had no jacket. I had, like, we jumped in frozen rivers. We did crazy breath work. My favorite part of that, honestly, was the dynamic meditation, which the place I lived, the woman who owns this property is a sannyasin. She lived with Osho, actually. So she knows all about that stuff. And so it's been beautiful to have you as part of my journey, Daniel, and I really appreciate your guidance through that, and I hope everybody checks you out.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, and thank you to the listeners for giving us your time and your attention and your presence to listen to this conversation. And until the next one, aloha.